Brother, are you all right?
No, I am not all right. I just shared a bottle of Kanar with Damar. That rhymes.
You're drunk.
Of course I'm drunk.
Sad that she has a bigger peen than he does.
Oh, you know what? That was an even better line to start the show with than I was expecting.
Hey, you gotta roll with it, right?
Hey, sometimes things just happen and you get that for an intro. Welcome, everyone, and,
Yeah, because the D was surprisingly large.
and that's why Steve Shives is no longer with his wife. Because hers is bigger, apparently.
Is that really that hard, though?
Are you being a size whore now?
No, he's being a sex queen. There's a difference.
I just mean, was it really that hard for him?
There have been a lot of questions around Steve Shives over the course of his internet career, and even though he's an idiot about a lot of things and just a pompous prick, because that really is all he is. He is just a little prick. Sometimes he actually does put out some material that is correct.
Well, as Tech would tell us, a broken clock is right twice a day.
This is true. And actually, speaking of the whole broken clocks and mental midgets, what was it that guy in that comment thread said to you, Leon?
You mean the guy complaining about the Foundation and saying how it was so shit and how it was just getting worse with every episode? How it devalued the source material? And then 2 comments later said they hadn't even read the fucking source material.
Yeah, that asshole. You started to mention something about this guy's self-proclaimed judgment of sci-fi.
Do you mean the whole thing with what's it called? Science fiction isn't just one type of material?
Well, and the fact that, well, he knows good sci-fi.
Yes.
My question is, how much do you want to bet that that guy is a fan of Star Trek Discovery?
I wouldn't be surprised. Well, actually, do you have the screenshots there?
Yeah, I'm getting them pulled up right now.
Yeah, because this is worth sharing with everyone else too.
Yes, we like to share the pain.
All right.
It's a whole new level of just stupid, and not stupid in of itself, entitled stupid.
Probably gonna need to zoom in to make it a little easier to read.
No, you guys must suffer.
Everyone gonna suffer.
My name is not Miles O'Brien.
Yes, it is.
It is now.
How's that?
Better. Much better.
Yeah, wait till you start reading it. Again.
Hey, we're starting off with somewhat of an improvement. Brandon just jumping right into the fire with this one.
Yeah, what the hell? Why
not? Okay, yeah, this is the beginning of the comment thread.
Yes.
Start
at the beginning.
For the rest.
Ben Loving Foundation. I never drew this parallel from DS9, but they put an interesting spin on it. By the way, this is a video by Major Grin, if I remember right.
Yes, it's a video showing Alexander Siddig both in his roles as Dr. Julian Bashir in the episode where they are trying to essentially see what's going to happen in the future with the other enhanced humans there. And Alexander Siddig as I can't remember what his name was. He was a type of an advocate, lawyer, whatever you want to call it, in the Foundation against Harry Seldon. Well, against Harry Seldon.
Give me just a second. I'll pull up the character name for you.
But then we get this wonderful cavalcade of words. Yeah, they're definitely words. They're not always coherent, but they are words. And who ends up becoming the prime suspect of this? Zaja. Serious? First episode was okay, the rest just sucks, and it just gets worse with every episode. I don't think he's watched it.
What gives you that idea?
Oh, it'll well, one, if anything, the Foundation series that has been airing through Apple TV has actually been getting better with each episode. You know, like a series is actually supposed to. You set an initial foundation with your first episode or 2 or 3, depending on the length of your first season, to lay the groundwork while also having some progress. But then once you've laid enough groundwork, then you can really take off. Yeah, that's exactly what the Foundation series has done.
Okay, so Alexander Siddig's character's name is Advocate Xylas. Xylas. So from a doctor to a lawyer. He's almost made his way to politician.
Oh, dear Lord.
Might as well just call him Fauci. Oh, wait, did I say that?
Oops.
Let's just say no punches are going to be pulled and no filters are going to be engaged for the remainder of this show and the one to follow. Get your alcohol ready.
We're playing Quiplash?
We probably will.
Just to try and keep the monetization, right?
Yeah, because both of them were in the green when we went off air, and by time I woke up in the next morning, yellow. Both. Fuckers.
Well, I got you a new subscriber today, Jared, just to let you know.
Oh, and we should have another one out there as well from my shenanigans at a particular store earlier this week. Now I'm not going to say what type of store because we're going to talk about that later.
Oh, the title. I don't know what you did.
Hey, some subjects are better for the free-for-all that is VTW. And later.
Oh, what was...
Anyways, back to the thread. So the original poster replies, I accept your opinion and understand, but I'm especially picky when it comes to TV, and especially sci-fi. I have no time for two-dimensional fairy tales. This one has a lot of depth and nuance. All I mean to say is give it a fair shake and you won't be disappointed. There are aspects that I think that could have been done better, but they are few and far between. I hope most would agree. I concur. Then Swordsman Mercenary. Foundation actually predates Star Trek. Look up the book sometime. Also predates Star Wars. Yeah, it's almost like it was one of the earliest novelizations of sci-fi when it was still a burgeoning genre of literary works. Kind of like Dune.
You mean like the dime novels and everything that were prolific during the 30s, 40s, and 50s?
And that's where they stemmed from initially, yeah. Then you get into the late 50s and into the 60s, and then you have works like from Asimov and Herbert and Heinlein and that generation of author.
I hate to say it because I know we're going to talk about them later, but Extra Credits does an extra sci-fi series that is actually pretty decent in talking about the history of sci-fi.
Yeah, that has come up, but I haven't had the time this week to watch some of those videos to really give a critique on them. But a couple of the things that you fuckers have found and posted, I want to hurt you for.
We aim to please, right, Leon?
I mean, we've got to have fun too. Now, that's really fucking funny. I'm not watching them, but we're hearing about people doing it.
Yeah. So, Zaja replies back, "Are you serious? It's poorly written, no depth at all, cheap cliches, all depth of the source material removed."
Pay attention to that last part of that line.
Sounds like Star Trek Discovery. The amateur wizard responds back with, "Same thing can be said for 95% of adaptations. Dune, Blade Runner, Dark Tower, The Mortal Instruments, they all miss things from the source material. You're making the book was better argument, and that in and of itself is a cliche. On its own, it stands well. We're all entitled to our opinions. I'd prefer if you didn't word yours as nonchalantly."
Which I would say that is actually a perfectly worded sentiment. It is nice, and it's actually stating his point without pretty much just punching the other guy over the head with it.
Yeah, and it's true. When you take a book and try to adapt it to visual media, you are going to lose a measurable amount of the story and how it's actually being presented and everything, because there are things you can get away with doing in a book that are exceptionally difficult to do on screen, like inner monologue.
Yeah, I'd say you could lose at least 25%.
No, if not more or less. It really depends on the book and what they were going for.
Like, it depends on the author's narration style and how they present the book.
Exactly. Yeah. Like Crichton, you tend to not lose as much because he's not as much of an inside your head monologue type, but does give enough narration and glimpse as if you're really essentially a deity watching everything going on, and you have access to everyone's mind with absolute precision. But then he is so graphic with how he describes some things. Like, shit, the death scene of frickin' Fat Ass was just over 2 pages of just how this dinosaur was eviscerating him.
And they can sit down to a 5-second shot of acid and then brown chicken, brown cow in the Jeep.
Yep.
But it's... And to contrast that, some people will talk about, like, the writing style of a J.K. Rowling or Christopher Paolini. I don't know how many of you have seen the Aragon movie that came out that was utter trash when you compare it to the book.
But the movie, haven't read it.
The book series is actually really great because, again, like most things, you can get away with the inner monologues, or you can get away with the this is what the character was thinking while they were doing this, that you can't get away with in the visual telling of the story, unless you were to literally do an inner monologue and waste everybody's time with, 2 minutes of dialogue over a traveling scene.
Yeah, nah. No.
But so all the depth of the source material was removed. Then Jaja comes back with, "I haven't even read the books. This has nothing to do with the source material."
Yes.
That's a facepalm moment. That is...
let's follow this here for a second.
Yeah.
It's poorly written, no depth at all, cheap cliches, all the depth of the source material removed. I haven't even read the books. This has nothing to do with the source material. Back to back comments from the same person.
Yeah, I don't even have the knowledge that you guys have about what's going on here, but even I'm like, what?
Well, as we were talking a little bit before we went on air, I'll admit, it has been a while since I read any of the Foundation series novels. And I have been thoroughly enjoying the Foundation series. Leon has noticed that they did some creative regendering of a character. Didn't even notice. It made no impact to the story at all, from my perspective. Because when you have a competent writing staff that can take something from a novelization and make it palatable for a visual media, and they're talented and good at what they do, shit like that happens.
With that, though, there are a few characters like Salva Hardin and Gail Dornick. They have been swapped out. But from what I can see of the story itself, they have been swapped out in order to actually build a new narrative, which is, well, to a certain degree, required that you make the swap for. I don't mind that. I don't mind it when it's something that you don't just lazily put. Say you have a white man, sure, olive skin, all that kind of shit, but a white man, and then you just switch it out for a black female character, and you do it just for the sake that you want that representation. It doesn't add anything to the story. It doesn't add anything to anything that you're trying to do there. It's just for the sake of, we want this one to be a black woman instead. That doesn't work. The way that they've done it in the Foundation, it's based on the book. And I started reading Foundation again earlier, and they hit the right beats in the book. They hit those beats that Dune didn't hit. They managed to hit the key points, so to speak, in the Foundation, in how they're trying to tell it. And that's really fucking hard to do in the best of times or in the best of circumstances. They managed to do it while swapping a lot of characters around and still expanding the story even more. I think they should be lauded for that. They should be getting praise for, at least so far, having managed to evolve or go past the first stages of the Foundation and do it well.
Yeah. Like I said, it is not an easy task to take such a complex and nuanced story and universe that has been built up over decades of work by a single writer, and then meld it and then change it just enough to fit a different media. And that's one of those adaptations that is actually working so far. And if the storyline keeps progressing in the way that it has through the 8 episodes so far? 7?
I think 7 so far. I think we've always watched 7 at least.
Yeah. Yeah, 7 episodes because there's 3 left for this season. The way that the story has progressed, despite the changes, has been exceptionally well done. And I'm looking forward to it continuing, and I'm looking forward to season 2 already. And we know how dire I have been about the views of series that have been coming out lately. To say I'm less than optimistic about many things would be an understatement.
I think that one of the most surprising things about this is it's from Apple TV. Out of all places, Apple TV has done this, or has at least released this. I am very impressed by it. I'm extremely impressed by just how they managed to execute it.
Maybe they have enough fans of the novels themselves that actually pushed for it to be done right.
You'd hope so. Which, considering my views on Dune versus Foundation, as has been mentioned before, I was expecting Foundation to be essentially an action fest. Everything's going to be action because, oh yeah, that's what sells. And that was based on what we saw from the advertisement, etc. at the time.
Yeah, and
when they actually,
and there's been action, but it hasn't been at the forefront. They've actually been sticking with the story. Now, here's the thing, Dora, I know you don't want spoilers. Now, you should know by now, if I even had the suspicion that there were spoilers going to be given, you'd have the warning visible up on screen. But we're just keeping it very general. We appreciate what they've done with it. We acknowledge that there have been changes to certain characters in certain ways that they've decided to. There have been slight story tweaks as a result, but overall, it is the foundation. And if you like the novels, go ahead and watch the series.
yeah, they did it well. They've been doing it really well so far. And they've been doing it with, I would say, a sense of actually being able to plan ahead. Not just that you have something where it happens in this episode and then you have payoff in the episode after. You have stuff that was said in the first episode still that rings true a couple of episodes later. And something that you still need to keep it in mind in order to understand what's going on.
Yeah, you're getting a coherence and cohesion from episode to episode and even leaping episodes, which just goes to show when you have a project like this with good writers, when it is supposed to be a longer story arc, it can work and it can be done right if you respect the story. I think that's really the best way to put it is it appears as though the production staff actually respects the material that they're trying to present. It's not just a paycheck.
That in today's climate it's surprising and it's a really nice just breath of fresh air.
See, we can talk about things and not have spoilers all over the place. But speaking of... No, not going to do that. I can be an asshole, but I'm not being an asshole that way today. Yet.
Yet.
So shall we move on to the second screenshot?
Well, hang on. We haven't gotten your foray into this. We still have those couple comments on this one to go through.
You want me to start reading it?
Go ahead and lend your own voice to your typed out words.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you haven't actually read the Foundation books, or are you saying that you haven't read all the books that Wizard was talking about?
I have not read the Foundation books, but the Foundation series sucks regardless. That's the point. Bad TV is bad TV. Really?
No, that's not how that walks.
It can, but in that case, you have to know what it's actually based on in order to know if it's bad or not.
Yeah. Even I agree with that.
But then, quoting the guy with, "Are you serious? It's poorly written at death at all cliches. All the death of the source material removed." So, you haven't read the source material. You're making a call on all the death from of the source material be removed, but you
Wow.
haven't read the source material. Are you being serious right now?
Yes, because I know what the source material is about. I also know science fiction should be about ideas and science, none of which is present in the show. Also, there are things like writing and characters, which is absolutely terrible in this show. You seriously claiming you can't see if something is bad if you haven't read the book is based on... There are countless bad movies or series based on literature. Miniseries. I hope you read them all, or you are literally unable to see what is right in front of your eyes. What a stupid, childish shit argument. Yes, I agree, Jaja. Your argument is completely stupid, childish bullshit.
But then after that, you quite literally made statements about the series lacking the depth of the source material. You then made the statement that you haven't read the source material. You talk about cliches and how the show goes for that instead, but how do you know that without knowing the source material? And what's being cut off there, sadly, is science fiction isn't just one type of material. Star Trek is sci fi, War of the Worlds is sci fi, Firefly is sci fi. There are so many different books, shows, games, etc. that are sci fi, yet they all have something different to bring to the table. What I'm claiming with that, or with it is that you can't make claims in regards to what the source material is if you don't know what the source material is. And so far, no reply.
Aw. No fun.
I'm expecting a completely and utterly just retarded fucking reply. I'm expecting something that will make the rest of it just pale in comparison.
Well, so far that's all that they've presented, so I would expect something along the same lines. And if you're going to criticize something and comparing it to source material, at least have a knowledge of the source material. And yeah, there are so many subtle variations and differences to the overall genre that is science fiction. It's not just hard science fiction. It's not just The Expanse.
And I'll actually take another example here, just to really fuck with this fucking argument there. 2001 and 2010, well, 2006, 5 too, the Space Odyssey books, where we have the, let's say, fantastical arguments, or not arguments, the fantastical parts of it, such as the monolith, Dave having his consciousness just removed or uploaded, Hal also having his consciousness uploaded. These are things that, if you just give it a cursory read, you won't really be catching up on it. But as you read through the books, you start realizing that, okay, there are things in these books that actually explain the things that have been going on. If you were to read, or if you were to watch 2001, you might not know what the fuck's going on. You might watch 2010 and not know what the fuck's going on. But if you actually read the books, or watch the two movies though, but if you actually read the books, you'll understand what's going on way better. And you'll actually understand that the way that they adapted the source material wasn't half bad. They actually did something more than you could have just expected with it. And even though it isn't really made 100% perfectly clear, you can still understand it if you have an understanding of the source of it. And even without that, they are actually quite striking visually on their own.
Yeah, and actually, that is something that I've noticed. A lot of the reviews and opinions of the Dune movie that just came out last week. Well, last week in the US. The common thing that I've noticed is your casual Dune fan of the novels are the ones who are heaping gobs of praise on the movie because they know enough of the story already to fill in the holes of what the movie left there. But those who are more intimately familiar with the material, we're the ones able to actually put enough of a break, watch the movie for what it's actually presenting and what it's actually showing, and comparing that to the story as it's told in the source material and the other iterations, and do a more proper analysis and comparison of it that way. And it has left the new movie lacking. Not that the new movie isn't enjoyable or is unwatchable as a result. It's just... it's been rather telling to me who actually has the knowledge of the book series that they may or may not have overblown in other conversations.
I will say though that, and not to have a too long of a tangent on Dune, the things that they try to set up in Dune, the things that they have been showing in Dune, undermines so fucking much of what actually happens in the universe. It undermines not just the story itself, it undermines the mechanics that are vital to the story.
Yeah, a lot of what the characters have to deal with is as a direct result of the political system and the way the economics are set up. And we've got none of that. I mean, yes, we know the spice is important. Yes, the spice is the lone export and is the reason why the planet Arrakis is important because of this export. And that is quite literally all that is explained in that movie. You need to know the story already to know the further nuance and the further details of why the planet is actually has the importance that it does.
They're not really even explaining why it is that spice is important. They're just essentially saying this is important, trust us. And then rolling with it.
Yeah, they're not really explaining what it's used for, I think.
But going slightly more into it, you start realizing that the majority, as far as I understand it, of the higher-ups in the Dune world, or the hierarchies in the Dune world, have become reliant on the spice. If they don't get the spice, they fucking die. Which pretty much means that the guild and the navigators might still have spice. They can get around no issues for a little while. But you won't have any leadership. You won't have those people in power who actually need to be in power for the current power structure to work.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, before we go to the actual primary topic that we actually, or shall we say, the prime topic of what this week was supposed to be about.
As a topic?
Sometimes.
Doesn't arrive till Tuesday.
Just one, I have one thing, well, a comment and a question for the person to ponder. God's Auditor, good to see you. Question for you to think about. Where were all the people?
Yeah, it's
Can I just preempt his answer with
Bullshit.
The prime distraction. No, we're going to be talking about the prime derivative. I mean, the prime directive. Yes, I had to throw the math joke in there and fuck with people with the thumbnail because, hey, that's the kind of asshole I am.
You're welcome for this punishment, though, Jared.
Okay, I gotta give God's Auditor a good one on that response. The people missing from part 1 are in the budget of part 2.
Oh,
But
Wow.
one of the more crucial scenes from the book that really laid a lot of the groundwork for understanding what was going on, there's no way in hell they can go back to. The banquet in the palace on Arrakis. They missed their opportunity with that.
And now that they actually did have the resources to be able to do some shit like that and do it properly.
Yeah.
I would say this about Dune, and you can say if you agree or not with it. The new Dune is the movie version of thinking that Frankenstein was the monster in Frankenstein's monster, as in the thing put together by a lot of other body parts. And then not understanding that Frankenstein himself was actually the monster. The thing that he created wasn't a monster, it was a victim.
Yeah, as a victim of the mad scientist in that sense.
Yeah, and looking at it, Dune is like someone making a movie where the quote unquote monster is always the monster, and Frankenstein was just a nice scientist that didn't do anything.
It's Frankenstein! Frankenstein! Leave it to Dora to throw that reference out there.
And welcome to the Casa Frankenstein. It just. It is something that I can't get past it in a movie. That they have missed the fucking point so bad. Even the palm tree scene, something that should have been so fucking easy to make. You need 200 people out in the fucking courtyard looking up at the dates. Or looking up at the fucking palm trees, hoping for dates to fall down. Some of them looking at them with hope, some of them just looking at them with scorn, some looking at them with disgust. And then you have 2 people on the fucking inside of the palace looking out, talking about why do they look at it like that, or why do they look at it like that. And just knowing that the palm trees aren't just some nice little thing there. They're a big fucking middle finger to everyone there, just showing we have so much water that we don't give a flying fuck that it takes 100 of you every day to water these.
Yeah.
Icarus, we are not going to talk about that.
Well, one of us has been watching it.
Well, there
And
is
then
only one
complaining
episode out right now, so.
And then complain that I didn't stop him.
Yes, but before we dive into that bit, let's actually get into it. And what would you guys say was the core tenet that is supposed to be at the forefront and moral core of the Federation in the Star Trek universe?
The core tenet, as in how they're supposed to act.
Oh, yeah, so we are talking about the Prime Directive and how that it is General Order number 1. It is the founding tenet of how Starfleet personnel are supposed to begin to view certain situations. Or really, all situations. And it wasn't always there. It was something that did have to be developed. But when we initially start watching Star Trek, it's there. It's already been established, and it does get challenged at certain instances at multiple points throughout just the displayed history of what's been put to screen. I mean, hell, even a couple times by the same crew. When you look at towards the latter half of, well, actually, multiple times in the Next Generation series, and then again towards the end of their movies, run of movies. It does. It's ambiguously specific. I think that really is the best way to describe it, because it's been kind of quoted, but I don't think there is actually a canonical dead on this is what it actually says in its entirety.
Yes, from my research, there's no actual definitive. This is verbatim what the Prime Directive is. It's always been alluded to by various officers. In some instances, it's a directive not to interfere with primitive cultures that haven't obtained warp flight, or if they have obtained warp flight, have they matured though as well to not use the technology of warp drives for belligerent means that could, cause conflicts. But at the same time, it's also, we technically can't interfere with two warp capable civilizations going to war unless they ask us to intervene. It's a broad yet oddly specific case of I can't interfere, but I can interfere.
Yeah.
If I were to guess, though, the Prime Directive isn't just one thing or 2 to 3 actual lines. I would say that it's, well, a huge piece of document where the main thing or the main gist of it are those things: non-interference unless otherwise actually asks for it. And that's essentially why you can't have one clear answer to it either. If it's a 200-page document just specifying this and that, you will have some leeway for the different kinds of people interpreting it, and also how they see it when they talk about it.
Yeah. Well, and keeping an eye on the chat, I have to partially agree with Aries 106. The Prime Directive is a plot device to save money and spend less on planetary sets. I half agree. Yes, it is a plot device. Not just for budgetary savings on sets and whatnot, because they still invoked it even when they were going to another planet and actually utilizing sets of being somewhere extraterrestrial. Think particularly in TOS, where you have the shooting but non-shooting war between two planets of quite capable civilizations that the Enterprise gets hung up in. Yeah, Kirk invoked the Prime Directive. Well, the Prime Directive was invoked to say that, well, it's the way their society is. We do not have the right or obligation to outright meddle with them. They still meddled, but they had to go about it a very different way, which actually harkens back to, timeline-wise, an older quote and reference of a similar situation prior to the advent of the Prime Directive from the polarizing character of Jonathan Archer.
Have we found his beagle yet?
Sadly, no.
We'll let you
Or
know when it.
Porthos.
We'll let you know when Porthos rematerializes. But
I halfway expected it doesn't arrive till next Tuesday. Then.
oh no. You need a little more time between uses of that. But for those who may not remember, the episode Dear Doctor, where they found the planet that was suffering from a genetic plague against one of the two related but separate species of differing cognitive levels. You have the higher, more human-like civilization having birth rate and other genetic issues with its population, but the less developed slave class, for lack of a better term, were unaffected or minimally affected. So you had a natural evolutionary process going on, but the Doctor, being the Doctor, in this case Phlox, wanting to help and save all people possible, wanted to go further, wanted to do more because his morals and views deemed it. And throughout that, Arthur comes out with, someday my people are going to come up with some sort of a doctrine, something that tells us what we can and can't do out here, should and shouldn't do. But until somebody tells me that they've drafted that directive, I'm going to have to remind myself every day that we didn't come out here to play God. And that mindset really is at the core of what they really melded the Prime Directive into each time they used it in a story. Just because we're an advanced civilization that has the interstellar travel, that has tackled certain societal ills and issues, we have no more right to force our opinions and views and standards and morality onto another civilization than they do to us. But at the same time, that's where you get into a bit of a murky area, because you have those instances where the Federation could prevent massive loss of life and really protect and allow things to play out differently. But one of the more common things that they stick to consistently is not interfering in the natural progression of a society or species.
That's really something that, when you start thinking about it, it's really fucking important that you don't start taking those small steps. And I think it's actually mentioned in, is it Pen Pals? Where Picard is talking about the whole thing with, do they save the girl or not? And he starts going on with, it starts with this little thing, then it's this other thing, and then you feel that you have an obligation to do this thing. All of a sudden, you're controlling everything. That's not what the Federation is about. That's why the Prime Directive exists.
Yeah, to help keep them in check. And I saw that, Brandon, and yes, Janeway is, oh boy, she is a special case. Just like Kirk is a special case when it comes to the Department of Temporal Investigations, Janeway has her own issues.
Eh. I just thought I'd have to point that out.
She's
Tricobalt devices.
Yeah.
Supposedly, somehow sending a shuttle to collect something from the same explosion, even though it didn't turn out to be that way. But they still blame her for it. Yeah, there's all sorts of fun stuff.
Trading Federation technology with lesser civilizations without realizing, well, without caring what the ramifications could be.
Well, she cared enough not to let the Kazon have it.
But the Hirogen, on the other hand, I mean...
Well, look what happened to the Hirogen. They ended up making holograms that could fight back quite well.
Was that before or after they hijacked the ship itself and damn near destroyed it?
That was after.
Think that might have factored in?
Oh, not at all. So, what brought up this topic, Jared?
Oh, I don't know. Why don't you tell everyone?
Why don't I share with everybody if you're familiar with the channel Extra Credits, you'll be familiar with their content of either reading too much into something or pulling a Captain Clippy.
Or being completely idiotic.
Yeah. So this is from their most recent Extra Credits video on designing morality systems and world building. So I cut it to right before where they're talking about how to build the various moral structures. They reference a D&D in their chart, the lawful good, neutral good, all that stuff. To basic, just good versus evil, and then how do you design it, and then they bring it into pop culture, film, literature, games, and they have to make a reference to Star Trek in this.
Use restrictive morality to create interesting conflicts. Take both of the Treks and the Wars in the Stars, for example. Star Trek has the Prime Directive, which states that Starfleet is prohibited from interfering with the internal and natural development of alien civilizations. Sounds good on the surface, right? But what if, say, Starfleet has the medical technology to cure a terrible alien disease? Engage conflict with a well-meaning moral stance, number one.
Yeah, and that is exactly what happened in the
Dear Doctor
Enterprise episode. Yeah.
And I think there's not exactly the same, but I think there was a similar episode with Crusher found a disease or was on a planet dealing with something. No, it wasn't the same thing. Never mind. I know which episode I'm thinking of. It's the one where she gets kidnapped by the rebels, so to speak. And then she's got to care for them, and she won't let Picard let her leave until she sees the worst of them.
Yeah, because that is a doctor, because even U.S. military doctors, they are honor bound by their profession as a doctor, as a medical professional first and foremost, that they heal and treat the sick and injured. If you are injured to the point of near or complete incapacitation, you're no longer an enemy combatant, technically.
You're a patient.
So now you're a patient, yes.
And just the way they cut that off, just right there, end of story, not to interfere with an alien civilization. But as you've watched Star Trek, you're kind of led to infer through watching Star Trek that it's not so much any alien species as it is more those species that are not quite as developed as our own. In this case, the Federation.
The general rule of thumb that they do harken back to on a number of occasions is not being aware of the greater populace of other intelligent species in the galaxy. Which is where that first episode in Pen Pal gets to be an issue, because Picard was fine to let that child and that civilization die as the planet was tearing itself apart until she called directly for Data to help. Because that constitutes knowledge and opens that door of, yes, they're not a warp-capable species, but they are aware of our existence in some way, shape, or form, which lets us fudge that rule of non-interference.
Yeah.
Now, this actually is an interesting take, and I would not be surprised if this was part of it. Aries says, the way you guys are describing it, the Prime Directive sounds like a response to the anti-colonial current of the times and a rebuke of white man's burden. I could see that, because a lot of the Prime Directive episodes early on was tied into the whole the political narratives and political turmoil around race relations and colonialism and the results of our own past and history of the 17, 18, and early 1900s, and in some way again in the mid to late 2000s and early 2010s. A similar thing where you have those currents come back around. You have that view of, yes, mistakes were made, liberties were taken, and you have to try. Some people are advocating for severe atonement. Some people are advocating for acknowledgement, but recognizing I personally or some sort of association was not there, so you can't blame me for things that I wasn't there for type of rhetoric, and it does get into quite a moral quandary. And the Prime Directive and how the Federation interacts with different cultures is a good methodology to take to try to parse through those subjects and that sort of subject matter.
Yep.
I feel though that with the Prime Directive and the way that it is portrayed in many cases, at what point does a culture stop being an advanced culture? At what point does a culture branch off from the main culture and earns itself a Prime Directive protected status? Because you remember the episode of DS9 with what's the faces? The crazy ass bitch and her cult. She sabotaged a ship. They were stranded. They had no modern technology. They were essentially
that bitch.
Radical space Amish.
That really is the best way to describe them. Wait. Not just radical. Radically militant space Amish.
Yeah. Fucking creepy. But would they be counting as something being protected by the Prime Directive? or would they still be seen as essentially I guess you could call it enlightened people or an enlightened group of people?
Well, hold on. Let me see if I can find the answer for you on this.
Well, I believe they would still treat them as essentially an equivalence because, one, they were Federation citizens, if not still seen as Federation citizens. So they're on equal footing there in that aspect from a legality standpoint. But also, this is where that whole thing of knowledge of other spacefaring and intelligent species in the galaxy comes into play. Just because they had forsaken their technological advancements in lieu of a more simplistic agrarian lifestyle, they were still aware of the greater galaxy at large, so the Prime Directive would not directly apply in that sort of severe case. What I would also point out is a better question, a better thought experiment on that would actually have been the Baku in Star Trek Insurrection.
Hold on. I have the answer for you, Jared. I've been trying to get it.
With the Baku, though.
Prime Directive doesn't apply.
Yep.
They are not indigenous to this planet. They were never meant to be immortal.
And it's not even whether or not they're indigenous to the planet, because that's only a possible avenue, a possible check mark. And that's the thing is, there's no strict guideline for what does include and exclude protection under the Prime Directive. It really is... Oh, God, Jay, I know you're going to remember these. For those other ex-military members out there and corporate environment people, it is more comparable to an operational risk management assessment.
Oh.
Yes. You have so many factors to consider, and they all have different weightings that you have to parse through it all together to come up with some sort of seemingly arbitrary number that if it's in this range, you act this way. If it's in this range, you act this way. If it's above this number, it's a fucking free-for-all.
With this, though, the Baku were intimately understanding of the position. They were essentially not going to let that go. They weren't going to let the civilization forget what they actually were.
Mm-hmm.
With that crazy bitches people, they wanted nothing to do with technology. Say 5 generations down the line, they might have trinkets, but they won't really have any of the previous understanding of the things that they were using.
She was essentially forcing a small-scale Dark Age.
Pretty much, yes. Which, say, 300 years into the future, most of the stuff there, having, say, for example, gone through a bit of a reformation, but people might not really want to have anything to do with any kind of that modern stuff anymore, it'll start turning into myths. People won't believe that these things actually fly among the stars. They won't believe that there's many other people around. Say 5,000 years after that, they can have their own civilization on the planet. Everyone being, well, the majority of them being staunchly anti-technology. But at what point does it become a pre-warp species again, or pre-warp society again? Because the Baku won't really have that. The Baku will always stay knowing of the things around them. With that society, they are willingly and openly trying to get rid of everything that's in regard to modern day society.
Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
I would have to say you're probably looking around the fourth or fifth generation that the knowledge would be lost, and that's where it would come into play, where they would probably, at least initially, similar to the Baku, initially upon rediscovery, be treated as a non-interference, no contact level civilization under the Prime Directive, until they found out that it was this offshoot. And then it becomes the morality question of the founders of this civilization willfully went to this sort of lifestyle. At what type and what level of obligation would the Federation still have to them after that transition becomes... It would still be a morality question, but also a legality question. You would end up having both sides of it there upon rediscovery, and rediscovery of their history that they might not be aware of, but would still exist in the records due to Cisco and his log entries and mission reports. So the Federation might temporarily forget active memory, but would still have the archive.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets into a real gray area. And it becomes a very case-by-case basis at that point. So it's one of those... I could still see them interfering with a relocation similar to what Worf's brother did.
When you brought up legality of everything, Jared, my first thought was, I hope they don't have Legal Eagle as their lawyer.
You got something against eagles?
Not eagles, just that particular one. The only difference is that on a hemispherical galactic scale versus they're just right across the planet from us scale. As a matter of fact, I was watching a video on 15 countries that exist but don't exist because they're not recognized by other countries. You know, the typical North Korea, South Korea,
Taiwan,
arguments.
China.
Exactly, those types of things. And it's funny when you sit there and like, the world of politics, the world of global politics is just the same thing that's been going on for the last, how many millennia have we been around as a species?
Oh, just a few.
200,000 years.
But it's just, you know, we cannot for some reason as a species butt out of other people's business.
Oh, but didn't you know? I know better than you because my definition, my knowledge is better than yours.
Uh-huh. We can have a whole conversation about that later on the other show, Jared.
Oh, there are so many. There are so many potential avenues on VTW this week. It's going to be interesting. It's almost like there's a reason why I instituted the challenge in the title that I did.
You know, if it wasn't for the fact I have glass on it, I'd offer to have Rodent have me blindfolded, and I'll throw a dart. And we can figure out which country to criticize first. I have a map of the Earth with shipping lanes on it.
Hey, now Rodent, I would say that no country is immune from criticism, just as no individual is immune from criticism. So,
oh yeah, Canadians. Sorry.
That's part of why I wouldn't last long in politics, because I wouldn't put up with people's bullshit. I would not put up with their, oh, you can't say that. You can't talk about that person. It's like, you can't talk about that country like that. It's like, no, 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 no. No, no. Stop it. We need to have the hard conversations. We need to have the difficult discussions and actually have the fortitude to talk to people that you may or may not disagree with. Because guess what? You might not actually disagree with the people that you think you do. So leave your fucking tribalism where it belongs. Far up your ass.
Jared, you're familiar with the band Rage Against the Machine, right?
And how they were an anti-corporate voice, but now are a pro-corporate voice. What do you want to know about them?
Yeah, I was gonna say I never actually considered them to be punk.
Their first
Anti-establishment, sure, but not necessarily punk.
Well, punk is one of the tenets of punk is anti-establishment in whichever fashion the band or frontman of the band decide to go with.
Right.
So they're fringe punk.
Yeah, I just happened to get the Timcast thumbnail up here. I'm just like, yeah, about that.
Yeah, Tom Morello is. It's interesting to see how some people's professed ideologies have changed over time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Rodent.
Yeah.
First album, punk as fuck. The rest, not so much. I would actually put it, Battle for Los Angeles is when I would not classify them as punk at that point. That album is the demarcation from my point of view. Ooh, RNGD Gaming does bring up a good one. Good point. He's of the mindset that there is no such thing as punk anymore. It died with the Sex Pistols and the Clash.
One can argue, but I think it would be not futile, but it would just be. We have to agree to disagree at some point.
Yeah, because there was still punk after they died. After those bands stopped being a thing, there was still punk. You just might be too old to want to get with the times.
Back in my days. I would actually say that punk has been, destroyed or that doesn't exist anymore. It just feels like punk has evolved past what it used to be.
Yeah, I would agree. The evolution of it is definitely muddled the waters. Now, what about that was so fascinating to you?
Oh, I was actually watching a video. I was watching this video, which led me to the 15 nations that aren't recognized. It's why 50% of Canadians live below the 49th parallel. And that line actually is the parallel of latitude where the southernmost island of Canada is, or the southernmost point of Canada is. And how more people in the US, more people live in the US in that area, as do all of Canada.
Yeah, I can see that.
Well, here's a question though, and it might be slightly along the lines of a hamburger sandwiches and all that stuff. But is Oingo Boingo punk?
I would say yes, similar to the Talking Heads is punk. When you actually listen to their entire offerings and more of their library of work, no, they're not the in-your-face grunge grungy, grunge-esque style punk like the Ramones, the Clash, the Sex Pistols, they are still punk in their own way. They have their own presentational flair, but they are still at their core, at their heart, punk. In that they don't just buy into and kowtow and cower to the corporate mass.
Because I'm just thinking, there is just a very certain song called Capitalism.
Oh, he was not subtle with his song titles at times.
Oh, the best thing about it, though, is that the entire song is pretty much a fuck you to the people who cry about capitalism while taking advantage of capitalism, and they themselves being essentially the ruling class because they feel like they can kick down with it. I mean, part of the lyrics is, you're just a middle class socialist brat from a suburban family and you never really had to work. And now you're telling me that we've got to get back to the struggling masses, whoever they are. You talk about suffering and pain. Your mouth is bigger than your entire brain.
And that's the thing. When you look at the actual message, when you look at the heart of the music, that's where you'll find out whether or not they're punk.
I'll say that with this, they are punk.
Yeah.
Or at least they're partly punk. Especially if we look at another song, such as, Little Girls, where the entire fucking song is criticizing the way that you have these rich fucking people being able to get away with having either underage or nearly fucking underage girls with them. And how that's seen as normal, how families even were willing to let their kids go to these people, or in some cases, even boys, and all that stuff. And the worst thing about that was that the band got shit for it. The band pointing out the hypocrisy, how just fucked up this is, got more shit for it than the people who actually did it.
Yeah, it's almost like the entertainment industry for a long time has been morally bankrupt and fucked up.
Speaking of that, I posted another video for next time we do a Trek episode in the group on Discord, Jared. Let me know what you think.
Oh, boy. Okay, I need to check that. Alright, those are going to be some fun things to look at later. And now looking at... Okay, how much... Why do I have a feeling they are going to fuck up that ranking?
Because they are.
I have no clue, but I haven't even watched it. I just opened it so I could get the link to post for you. So, when did you want to talk about 10 things you didn't know about Chakotay?
Ideally never, but the way this night is going.
Because I'm just like, did you even look into the culture you were trying to talk about?
Why does it not surprise me that that's part of the issue from that one?
Oh, you mean because of the fact that they have culture in all the names of their projects?
I just stopped considering that. It was simply because it's a gimmick that they use because they are culturally inept in most of what they do. So it's almost like a tongue-in-cheek self-deprecation that they keep it there?
Or are they just so unaware that they keep it in because they think it's accurate?
I think it's branding entirely at this point is the
Yeah, it's
only
entirely
reason
the
why
brand.
it's still there. And ooh, here's a good question. Is Simon and Garfunkel punk because they sang anti-establishment songs? Now, I would actually put Simon and Garfunkel as a pre-punk generation because they were more a protester when it came to that.
Yeah.
And the sound of silence.
Yeah. Punk grew out of the protest music of the 60s and 70s. It was an underground, more initially less visible type of, because of some of the purveyors of it, you can call it an initially militant style of presentation. But then the sounds evolved, and you have those other branches and factions that come from it. So,
Oh, the nostalgia bringing up Simon and Garfunkel.
Chevy Chase is an asshole, but that was actually a fun video.
Chevy Chase is... That generation of comedians really did have a lot of bright spots. And it's a shame that it was followed with a less than stellar quality of comedian that still got pushed for notoriety because, hey, ratings are a thing. Let's make some money.
No, stop stealing the tagline to Spaceballs 2.
Oh, the quest for more money.
Yeah. No, interesting side note about that particular Paul Simon song is at my school, because of how small we were in high school, we would do a senior slideshow presentation as a padding out of the graduation ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
This was the backtrack to my slides. Because my nickname in high school, when I got to this high school and I joined the basketball team,
Mm-hmm.
there were two guys, both named first name Joe. So the senior who was playing, he kept the name Joe. The other kid got the name Jay. Well, when I came in, because my name's just Jay, they went with an abbreviation of my middle name. So you can call me Al. And it just like, okay, we got to play on this then. I made sure to get the slideshow presentation to at least to the point where the penny whistle solo comes in.
Nice.
Because you got to love a penny whistle.
How the fuck did this happen? We go from talking Star Trek and sci-fi to music theory.
Because everything happens in 10 forward.
This is true. A lot of things have gone down in that space, including a birth.
Hey, Worf
Poor
made a very
Worf.
good nurse.
Sadly, no Icarus. It would be nice, but with Mel Brooks no longer being with us, all we have are the references he already put in it, the movies that are available to you now on DVD and through multiple streaming services.
Jared?
Yeah.
He's still alive.
I thought Mel Brooks passed away like
No,
a year
he's still
ago.
kicking. Nope, he's still kicking.
Stubborn bastard. I love it.
Let's see. He's actually no.
Hmm?
Blazing Samurai in post production. Oh, it's even better. It's animated. It's an animated retelling of Blazing Saddles, it looks like, according to the description on IMDb. But it's got a Garfield-esque cat in a sumo diaper. It seems interesting.
It could go either way.
Oh my god, it's got Samuel L. Jackson in it. Okay, Ricky Gervais. Okay.
Let's see the cat. Let's make sure that's not all the cast.
Gabriel Iglesias is a voice in it.
Yep.
Okay, they got Fluffy in there. Okay, this could be good.
And you have Mel Brooks in there playing the voice of the Shogun.
But will there be
Oh, God.
merchandise?
Grandma. Huh. Okay, so it's mainly been doing voice. See, that's what...
Yeah.
Yeah, see, he's... See, that's where I thought he stopped working other than that appearance on Voice in Hotel Transylvania for a few years. That's why I was like, hey, he kind of fell off the radar. Good thing.
Know what you're good at. Your voice is your best talent right now. Go with it.
Yeah. Rodin has a good question here. Does Star Trek pigeonhole stereotypes by trying not to pigeonhole stereotypes? That's a definitely maybe yes. And it really depends on which era you're looking at, because TNG, DS9, most of Voyager, they were less apt to do it, but it still happened on a couple occasions. TOS in the current renditions, oh yeah. TOS, because it was a byproduct of its time when it was on air initially, and Discovery simply because they don't know how to fucking write. Also, Leon, the response in that image is not nearly strong enough.
I'm gonna have to send this to Jay, aren't I?
No, don't.
Yes.
There you have it.
Unfortunately, that is a universal truth.
It's one of those, I hate kids who are not my own. Mainly because kids are assholes most of the time.
Well, that's why I have to teach them to not be assholes.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Kids, especially toddlers, they're drunken assholes without the alcohol. They don't know better until you teach them. The problem is they have the retention of a drunk.
Yes. Oh, so Rodin asks, how obvious does sci-fi need to be to express current social problems? It doesn't. That's the thing. It does not need to be obvious to actually do it effectively. That was the thing with, let's call it golden era Trek when it comes to writing TNG, DS9, and Voyager. They could write and have the social commentary in there, and it wasn't preachy, bludgeoning bullshit. That's what we've been getting from the current incarnations.
Yeah.
Preachy, bludgeoning bullshit.
Well, here's something though. Most of the time, when you see that kind of era or the writing of that era, it still gives both sides more as actually showing there's more than just one side to this. You might like one side more than the other, but it was rare that they did it in such a black and white way that you could just say, oh, this is good, this is bad. Now they try to do that as much as possible. They try to really fucking hammer it out, not hammer it in. These are the good people, these are the bad people. Know your place.
Well, how many TV shows, how many series, how many movies that have been written, produced, and put out in the last, let's call it 5 years? Have you been able to predict who the villain was simply by race and gender?
Way too many.
Let's oh, someone send this to Az from Heel versus Babyface, because he's the one who really brought this to my attention.
Sorry,
Batwoman. The Batwoman TV series. If you see a Caucasian male on screen and he's not openly in your face flaming gay, there's your bad guy for the episode.
And he'll be the most innocuous white guy out there because he'll just pass by in the street.
Yeah.
But we know that white people are always evil. Especially those white men who don't suck cock. Let's see, there is a... There we go. There you have it. The entire thing of it.
And isn't that a direct quote from the movie too?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
It's... Ah, fuck's sake. It has to be the GIF. There we go. That is essentially everything they do with it.
All right.
World history in one sentence in...
Oh, we're going to sing the song next there, Leon?
Oh, God damn it.
I don't think we need to.
Now, I will preface this with, at the time this movie came out, it was not as bad as it was today about who you blame for what. This does not mitigate. This is in no way an attempt to lessen the impact that European settlers had in different parts of the world. You would be an idiot to try to say that they had no hand in any of the massive changes that happened in every region that they went to. But to sum up the whole history as white men bad, bit short-sighted and a bit narrow.
Yeah, was it slightly? Which,
Well, just remember, Jared, history only goes back to when Europeans started colonizing other continents, beginning somewhere around the 1490s. Anything before that didn't happen.
Yeah,
Oh, and anything that other indigenous people did to other indigenous people on any other continent, that doesn't matter either.
you mean like how there's still active slave trade in the Middle East with Africans?
We'll save that one for the next show, Jared.
Yeah, that one's for the next show. And as is more on that topic, because, oh boy, was there the gem of a conversation involving a history professor from Rutgers University.
Is it the one that was on Omegon's thing?
Yes.
Okay, that's funny. I didn't know it was at the college level.
Oh no. I know Omegon had referenced it, but he's not where I first saw it, and oh boy, did she stick her foot in it during this. Actually, I first saw Undoomed shared it on Twitter.
All right. Yeah, I haven't seen Undoom share it, so. But here's where they start the list.
Okay.
I'm just gonna leave it there, and we're gonna talk about it another time.
At least they're starting off sensible.
Okay, you're not gonna like the one that follows after it, but you.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ.
Wait, what?
Are you sure you want to wait now? You know, we do have a little bit of time.
I'm trying to figure out what this is supposed to be, other than being the same movie they literally just talked about. Hold on, I gotta see the transition.
History only goes back to where I disagree with it. Oh, that sounds like flurf argumentation there.
Oh. Okay, so so they made a cut in the middle of their presentation of number 12 to make it appear to be a separate movie, but it's the same thing.
Okay, so they ranked Star Trek V at the bottom. What did they follow it up with?
Insurrection.
Really?
Followed by the original motion picture.
Where the Okay, what happened to Generations?
Oh, hold on. Because apparently after that they didn't even make a break in the chapters for it. Number 10 is Into Darkness.
Oh, they're including those ones too.
Yes.
Ooh. No, Icarus, you are not the only one who likes Insurrection. You should actually go back and watch our review of it, because it was better than I remembered initially.
Then Nemesis.
Wait, they put Nemesis? Oh my fucking God.
Nemesis is number 9, it looks like. Let me.
I'm just thinking the whole thing with Insurrection being good. I guess that has a kind of different context now as opposed to a little while ago.
Number 8, The Search for Spock.
Yeah. That might be a little low for 3.
Hold on. You're like number 7 or number 6. Number 6 is Star Trek 6.
Yeah, no. Oh, no.
Oh, wait till you hear which one's ahead of it.
Generations?
No. What was the last movie we reviewed for Star Trek?
Oh, they put fucking Beyond ahead.
Uh-huh. Oh, it gets better. And by better, I mean totally worse. Number 4. Star Trek Generations.
I'm sorry, what?
Uh-huh. Number 3. Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home.
Let me guess. 1 and 2 are going to be First Contact and Star Trek 2.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Because they combine. I hate how they're doing these chapter markers. Oh, these chapter markers suck.
So I can't fault them too much if it's First Contact.
It looks like it goes number 2 Star Trek First Contact, and then
Wrath of Khan, number 1.
Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, okay. Wrath of Khan 1, First Contact 2. I can give him a pass on that. Star Trek 4 being number 3. Okay. Yeah, it is one of the better ones, but to then follow that up with Generations and the Kelvin timeline. I want to know what the fuck they were smoking, and are they gonna share? That's what I want to know.
Well, like I said, we have it. We can watch it and listen to their rationale and
Eviscerate it next time.
yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good to me, because you know what? I think it's time to take a break and get something to eat before the continuation of the fuckery. Because,
I have a bad feeling about this.
Oh boy, has there been some fuckery to talk about. And, oh, yeah, this'll be fun. Yeah. There'll be fun, or the beatings will continue. So.
But I haven't put the lotion on yet.
It puts the lotion on the skin, or it gets the hose again.